How much do you think a name is worth? Not really something we think about, is it? How about another question? How much do you think a human life is worth? When I lived in Nepal, I knew a girl whose name was stolen. Our friends found her screaming for water on the streets of a Kathmandu neighborhood, with a weathered rope tied around a wound in her neck that overflowed with maggots. She had escaped a brothel where her owner had abused her, mistreated her, and beat her nearly half to death. She was stripped of her life, beaten out of her identity, and by the time our friends found her, her memories of who she was were so far gone that she didn't even remember her own name. It was stolen from her. Our friends named her Maya, which in Nepali means love. Unfortunately, Maya had trouble recovering. Her mental state teetered back and forth unstably, and in the end, she ran away from the home where she was staying. We never heard from her again. It's so interesting to me that human trafficking is so prevalent and yet seemingly so little talked about. In our world today, human trafficking is the second largest organized crime in the world. It's estimated that 40.3 million people are enslaved globally, literally everywhere, even in our own backyards. Growing up in Nepal, the effects of human trafficking were pretty obvious for me, since everyone I knew had someone who was affected by human trafficking. Down the street and around the corner from my house was a brothel. And every day, going home from school, we saw children our own age picking up street trash and placing it on baskets in their backs. For me, human trafficking wasn't this abstract idea happening to people halfway around the world. It was happening to the people around me. It was happening to my friends. Maya's story was just one of thousands in Nepal. So, most of Nepalis live rurally, living off of what they can find. Men, women, and children from Nepali villages are tricked by traffickers, thinking that they have the key to a better life. Come with me. I have a really great job for you in India. It'll be so easy. You'll earn a lot of money. Or, similarly, we can have a better education for your child in Kathmandu. It's okay. She can come with us. And this might not seem so tempting for us, but to a Nepali family who lives off of farming and who has 5 children, who just lost their entire crop, who is going to support them for the next year, it seems too good to be true. And traffickers must seem like saviors, considering that they come from the villages, that they're their neighbors, their friends, their family. Of course they must be. And for the Nepalis, most of those who are trafficked are outcasts of their community. The poor, the uneducated, the refugee. All of this seems like a miracle for someone who has no opportunity to advance socially or economically. Just a miracle. A miracle that quickly turns into a nightmare. Once taken from their villages, many Nepalis are forced into cosmopolitan areas, often being sold multiple times to different owners. Slavery takes its different forms through forced labor, sex labor, forced marriages, and forced removal of human organs. Those children I passed by on the way to school, they had missing limbs, hands, legs cut off to garner more sympathy from tourists so that traffickers can earn a little extra cash. And it's thought to be that by working in brick kilns, carpet factories, pornography, and sexual tourism, as well as forced begging, these children are robbed of their childhoods. Likewise, women are forced into hard labor, domestic work, and sex work. It is estimated that 30,000 women from Nepal are trafficked into India every single year just for the purpose of sexual exploitation. And if that wasn't enough, because there's more, men who are migrant workers overseas are often abused and mistreated. They are taken advantage of in areas like the Gulf Coast, China, South Korea, and Malaysia. They become stripped of rights, and oftentimes their passports, whether they be legal or illegal immigrants. They become stranded without a means to survive, let alone go back to Nepal. Many of those who do go back to Nepal come home in coffins. So, what do we do? Human trafficking is killing thousands of people every single year and dehumanizing and abusing thousands more. It is one of the grossest violations of human rights today, taking people and saying that they are worth nothing, not even a name. What do we do? Human trafficking is a very complex issue, and this is in Nepal and just around the world in general, because there's so many multifaceted causes of human trafficking, like poverty, poor economy, mass migration, lack of education, trafficking incentives, lack of children's rights, misogyny, an unstable government, and misogyny, which I said, and discrimination of ethnic minorities and those of a different caste system. But imagine it, if you will, as this huge ball of yarn, and this long, big string that's human trafficking. Now, this long, big string is all knotted up, tied, tangled through all the loop-de-loops, everything. And it's such a big mass that you can't just cut through it. There's not one single solution to fix human trafficking. Because if there were, we would have fixed human trafficking. But instead, each individual strand needs to be pulled out, and there's many different ways that people choose to do this. It's a big job, but thankfully, there are people who've already gotten started. I have hundreds of friends in Nepal who are all working on the problem of human trafficking of many differing yet effective ways. NGOs like Three Angels, Tiny Hands, and Mata Nepali are tackling human trafficking by conducting rescue missions into India and along the Indo-Nepali border, rescuing women out of their sexual trafficking and giving them stability by providing education, a home, and support as they deal with reintegration. Business also tugs at another string. Our friends in Nepal focused on economic empowerment by creating a company called Dalat, which provided work to at-risk women, not only giving them a source of income, which protected them from the common lure that traffickers used, but also provided them flexibility so that they could stay home with their small children and their families. They also have literacy classes, teaching some of them to write their own name for the very first time. Likewise, outcry has stirred up the Nepali government to pass new legislation, not only tackling the problem of lack of children's rights, but also the problem of all the overseas Nepali workers. In fact, recently, the Nepali government and the Malaysian government were working on a piece of legislation to protect more Nepali workers and immigrants here in Malaysia. But even more exciting than this, local communities have also stepped up and taken human trafficking into their own hands. One such group of these, I knew in Nepal, built a women's shelter to take in women coming out of India. They provided love, time, energy, and money, all pouring into these women in order to help them with the reintegration process. They also helped through donations to provide them with work opportunities, and some of them even went back to school. Every time my family went to see them at the home, they had bigger and bigger smiles. Thanks to the help and care our friends provided, these girls flourished spiritually, emotionally, physically, just all of it. And more importantly, our friends provided them with a new community and family through love. Now, this is huge in Nepali culture, because if you don't have fellowship in Nepali culture, you are nothing. If you don't belong, you are nobody. Not only did this community take in the outcasts fighting against human trafficking, but I believe this is a win against the caste system and against misogyny and against social outcasts and social stigmas. It's incredible. They gave these girls their names back through love. And I think there's something extraordinary that can be learned through these local communities. They're modeling the power of a community coming together against human trafficking and against injustice. So this year, I decided to do a project and create a charity for one of my friends working in Nepal by creating these crafted Christmas ornaments that are called tamari balls. Now, tamari balls have their origins in Japan and are a gift given during a time of joy between people who are in close relationship with one another, through friendships or through a mother giving it to their child, as a symbolic element of real love and tenderness between two people. And so I decided I wanted to raise money for my friend who decided to work on prevention of human trafficking through adopting at-risk children. She veered away from an institutionalized home and instead decided to take them in as family members. And I got to be friends with this amazing family of 14 children when I was younger. Of course, I realized as I was doing it that education is a key to preventing human trafficking. So I was set. I was going to make an educational scholarship and give it to my friends for Christmas. I initially did not do what I preached, and I thought I was going to cater my ideas to the masses, worldwide, you know? But as I went along, I realized I really should go to my own community. I should see what I could do, because I realized that the impact that I could have among my neighbors and friends would be far more significant than anything I could have on a worldwide scale. And the results were incredible. Everything I thought I could achieve on a large scale was so little in comparison to what I could achieve among my friends, my family, my neighbors, and my communities. So my mom went to her friends, and I spoke out against human trafficking at my school. And something very hopeful and very heartfelt happened to me. So I was sitting in class, and one of the girls behind me tapped me on the shoulder. I looked over, and she basically suggested this idea of selling her cakes at church to help raise money for my scholarship. I hadn't asked her to do this. I never even thought of it. Yet she felt moved and touched, and she wanted to help in any way that she could. And it was incredible because that really mirrored the power of community, multiplying our efforts through the people that we touch every single day. Maya's story was heartbreaking. But this isn't the end. It gives each of us a call and a choice. Not all stories involving Nepal's stolen names end in tragedy. The family that I played with when I was younger found a loving home. One of the girls actually translated a module on human trafficking during a giant women's conference for local leaders that encouraged them to look at human trafficking within their own communities and fighting against it through that. One of the girls at the community home will be finishing up dentistry school this year. She's been inspired to take a mobile clinic around the villages of Nepal, preventing human trafficking through her words and making sure that what happened to her never happens to anyone else. A ripple always starts out small, but it grows. And either we have the choice to be blissfully ignorant at the cost of others' suffering, or we can make an impact in our own communities, among our friends and family, changing the world that we're living in. If stuff like this can happen on one of the poorest nations on earth, why can't it happen with you? We are all a part of this. We can work together to be a catalyst for change, unraveling the ball of injustice and restoring back the value of every human being, of every name. Let's give back the names that slavery stole in Nepal and around the world, because every single human being is priceless.